Good, happy Saturday morning, July 13, 2019. I'm Riley King, and welcome to the Riley King newscast right here on the Riley King Network. We have a lot of news to get to this morning, so let's begin. First up, Manchester police increase patrols after recent spike in violence. 2 shootings in as many weeks and multiple stabbings have Manchester police increasing their presence across the city. Earlier this week, 2 people were injured in an afternoon shooting on Ahern Street, and last week 18 died after police say he was shot on South Willow Street. No arrest has been made in either shooting. They are just some of the violent crimes Manchester officers have been dealing with recently. Capano has added 2 more cruisers to patrol the city in the evening, each with 2 officers. It's been a busy and violent 2 weeks, but Capano said citywide property and violent crimes are down 39% since 2015. Capano said his officers respond to up to 150,000 calls every year, and they can't do their job without help from the public. Biden counts young voters in Portsmouth. Joe Biden is trying to reach the largest voting bloc in the 2020 election, young people. On Friday night, he headlined a fundraiser for New Hampshire Young Democrats at Costco Brewers in Portsmouth. Biden said the country can't afford another 4 years under President Donald Trump. Earlier on Friday, Biden spoke at Castaways restaurant in Dover. He told supporters he would repair relations with U.S. allies. And I was at the event yesterday for the New Hampshire Young Democrats event yesterday, and let's take a look at some video I took and photos. And let's take a listen to this video.
Talk to some of the folks inside, Lucas, as well as Minnie and Molly and Danny, who's just too young. When I ran, I got elected at age 27. I didn't plan on getting involved in running for politics. But my state was in a situation where we're a border state, and we have the 8th largest African American population in the country. And the problem at the time was we had we had a Southern Democratic governor. And when Dr. King was killed my senior year, when I graduated, we were occupied by the National Guard for the better part of 9 months, with drawn bayonets in every corner. The only city in America occupied by the military since the Civil War. And I got engaged with a group of young Democrats and to change the Democratic Party in Delaware from a Southern Democratic Party to a mainstream Democratic Party. And then next thing I know, I was asked, we kept trying to get people to run for office as mainstream and liberal Democrats, and it was hard to do. And finally, I'd been working on with this group to do it, and they said, why don't you run for the county council, which is a district that is 3 times as large as a state senator and 7 times as large as a state house member, because one county of ours, like Illinois, has over 60% of the population. And the end result was that I ran after I was assured that I couldn't win because it was a Republican district. And I ran and I won because of an awful lot of young people. And by the way, I was talking to some of the high school young Democrats in there. And I told them something that my sister knew before I did. My younger sister, who was my best friend and managed all my campaigns. She was a teacher at one of the high schools. And we started to organize, because we didn't have any money, we started to organize young people in high school, not even college, in high school, to get engaged in our campaign. And they started calling the kiddie campaign to make fun of it. Well, we won. And we won in a district that no Democrat had ever won. And the next thing I know is Republicans decided they were going to reapportion me because of the decennial census of 70 in a district that went from 60% Republican to 72%. So I was put in position and I elected to a 4-year term, and they said I had to run again in 2 years. So I was, as they say in politics, up or out. And we couldn't get anybody to run for the United States Senate at the time. And they came to me and said, would you run? And I thought, I went to my deceased wife, who was my best buddy, now deceased, and she said, look, either get in or get out. So I ran, thought I think I could help the party. We put together high school Democrats, high school students, and we had a volunteer force in a small state, not a joke. And they taught the course at Harvard for years, at the Harvard Kennedy School. We, in fact, put together 20,000 volunteers, mostly high school students. And the end result was I learned something very early on. And I'm going to repeat it to all of you, both high school and college Democrats and young Democrats. The fact of the matter is, you have more influence on how your parents vote than they have on you. Not a joke. You may sit at the dining room table having dinner with your mom and dad and say, I met her and I really like her. Or I met him and I really like him. And your parents will pretend it didn't matter much. But they'll go up, not a joke. They'll go up and say, if my kid liked that person that much and knew them, there must be something there. And I won. I won by 3,100 votes. And I got to talk to some of the folks in.
Okay, and that was video that I took from the event last night. And here's some photos of the event. That's the stage. Press area. And another photo. Now let's take a look at your 2020 New Hampshire candidate tracker for July 13, 2019. We have a lot of candidates in New Hampshire today. Joe Biden, he has 2 stops today in New Hampshire. His first stop is a house party in Atkinson, New Hampshire at 10:30 a.m. And then his second stop is at a community event at Max Apples in Londonderry, New Hampshire at 2 p.m. Cory Booker, he's in New Hampshire today, and he has 3 stops today in New Hampshire. His first stop is a canvas launch with Manchester Mayor Joyce Craig in Manchester, New Hampshire at 9:30 a.m. And then his second stop is a conversation with Corey in Nashua, New Hampshire at 11:30 a.m. And then his third stop is a house party in Exeter, New Hampshire at 5 p.m. Seth Moulton, he has 3 stops today in New Hampshire. His first stop, meet and greet at Fuller Public Library in Hillsborough, New Hampshire at 11:30 a.m. And then his second stop, meet and greet at the Town Green in Ware, New Hampshire at 1 p.m. And then his third stop, holding ice cream social at the Bungalow Club in Exeter, New Hampshire at 3 p.m. Beto O'Rourke, he has 3 visits today in New Hampshire. His first stop, Manchester Democrats potluck picnic in the Manchester Park in Manchester at 12 p.m. And his second stop, Town Hall at the Highland Lake Inn in Andover, New Hampshire at 3 p.m. And then his third stop, Town Hall in Meredith, New Hampshire at 5:30 p.m. And those are all the candidates that are in New Hampshire. And if you want to see that complete list, we have a link for you on the Riley King Network Facebook page. First ever video from journalists inside border facility. Let's take a listen to that video from CNN.
In an effort to defend the Trump administration's handling of the migrant crisis, the U.S. Vice President visited 2 detention facilities on the southern border on Friday. First, Mike Pence toured a newer center that opened in May to help with the overflow of migrants. Now, this one held families, and Pence says he didn't see the so-called inhumane conditions often reported. He said the migrants there were being treated well and were getting compassionate care. Now look at this. It was a very different picture here at the single adults facility that Pence visited next. It was packed. The men said that they didn't have access to showers, were not able to brush their teeth, and were sleeping on the floor. Border Patrol says there isn't enough room for cots. CNN's Pamela Brown asked the U.S. Vice President about the discrepancy between these 2 facilities.
We went to 2 different facilities today, and there seemed to be a big difference between the first one where the families were being housed and the one here where there are single adult migrants. When I went in there, one of them said to me, I'm talking about the second facility, this isn't human, the way we're treated. There was a horrible smell. I'm sure you smelled it. You were in there as well. They were sleeping on concrete because there's not enough room for cots, we're told. It was hot. Some of them claim they were hungry. Is that acceptable to you?
No, it's not. And it's the reason why we demanded that Congress provide $4.6 billion in additional support to Customs and Border Protection. Look, for the last 6 months, Democrats in Congress have been saying this is a manufactured crisis. But as you saw firsthand today, here at McAllen Station, where our cells are overflowing, and now that temporary facility that you just saw had to be established. And then the first facility that we saw, where nearly 1,000 families with children are being detained, ought to be a very clear message to every American that the time for action is now, and the time for Congress to act to end the flow of families that are coming north from Central America to our border is now.
The first facility we went to with the families, was that really a fair representation of how most of the migrant families have been treated under CBP care?
You are at the epicenter here in the Rio Grande Valley of this crisis of illegal immigration. 60% of those that are being detained coming across our southern border are coming through this sector. So I think what we saw today was a very fair representation of how families are being treated. And look,
But there's
I
several different
understand.
facilities, and this was one of them
I
that
understand
was
Americans are
just built
troubled.
and made to handle the overcrowding.
Americans are troubled by what they've read in the newspapers about
Well, all you have to
families
do
not
is look
being
at
cared
pictures
for.
like this. I mean, when you look at that, what do you see?
Well, I can't account for that. What I can account for is that the
But here's the
facility
vice
that
president.
you
How do you
saw.
not account for this?
This facility that you saw today represents the level and the standard of care that we are working to bring to all those caught up in this crisis.
Now, immigration attorney Alan Diamante joins me now from Los Angeles. First,
Okay, and there you go on that video. If you want to see the whole video, we will have a link for you on the Riley King Network Facebook page. And that does it for this morning edition of the Riley King Newscast, right here on the Riley King Network. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you back here later on today for another newscast. And I'll have a news report coming up in a little bit. Goodbye, everyone.